Today on Unsolved Florida, we have another missing persons case coming from Naples, Florida. A young woman, two suspects, and no answers. Let's dive in. Heidi Ann Zampell was born on November 1st, 1964 to her parents Paul and Deborah Zampell and was only 22 years old at the time of her disappearance. She was a 1983 graduate of Naples High School and had a boyfriend in the Army stationed in West Germany. Heidi was originally from Massachusetts but moved to Florida with her parents sometime during her high school years. Her family in Massachusetts were well known for their prominent construction and fireproofing business, Zampell Refractories, which is not really related to the case, but just saying that her family came from wealth. Heidi worked at Bath Teak at the Coastland Mall in Naples, Florida in 1987. She finished her shift at the mall around 5 o'clock on June 18th and asked a high school friend to drive her to Golden Gate Estates. James Jimmy Hell Hannafin told the police that Heidi wanted to visit Arthur Sims at his home, but refused to tell Jimmy why she needed to visit. Arthur Sims was the pastor of Naples Independent Bible Church at the time. Jimmy took her to Sims' house and dropped her off at the end of a long, winding driveway, he claims, at about 6 p.m. She allegedly asked him to leave her there and not go up with her. I just want to note that Sims lived on a large property, and you can see here it was mostly woods, and he had a dirt driveway that was very long to where you couldn't see the house from the road. Here's a picture of the house from the outside, and this is the back of the home. So it's a pretty large home. Also noteworthy is that from her work to Sims' house is about 21 minutes, even though Jimmy said it took them about an hour. It's unclear if they stopped anywhere else, if she was late getting out of work, or if they were a little bit early and Jimmy was just saying, yeah, it was around 6. So when the police interrogated the pastor Sims, he said Heidi was not a member of his church and did not know her or her family, and that she never visited his house that day. Heidi was not reported missing until 3 days later on June 21st, 1987, when she did not visit her family for Father's Day. Police believe Heidi was met with foul play or taken against her will. She did not have a history of leaving, had no current passport, and left behind all of her clothes, important belongings, and even her last paycheck. When she was dropped off at Sims' house, allegedly, she was only carrying her makeup bag. She has no criminal record but had a suspended license at the time. Sources vary if it was because of an unpaid parking ticket or unpaid speeding tickets, which is why her friend Jimmy had to drive her to Golden Gate. Heidi lived on Pebble Beach Circle with a family friend. She was very close with her parents and her whole family, and they don't believe she ran away. Unfortunately, her case remains unsolved to this day. Jimmy passed away in 1999. Neither he or Sims were named as suspects or people of interest publicly by police. Jim did have several run-ins with the law, including theft, probation violations, one domestic violence that was dropped, drug charges, but not a lot about him is known. He did die really young. He also changed his name maybe once or twice. It's pretty confusing. There's a whole Reddit thread about it and stuff on Web Sleuths if you want to look further. Pastor Sims went on to preach at various churches across Florida, and he retired in 2016. He is still alive, but he has kept his distance from this case and says he didn't know her, didn't know Jimmy, and doesn't know anything. I always like to add my thoughts on the case briefly at the end of these videos, so I'm going to do that now. It seems like our friend from high school, Jimmy, has had a shady life, although the charges came after her disappearance. If he ended Heidi's life, perhaps she turned him down theoretically. She did have a boyfriend who was overseas and not sure how long he had been gone, but if he was responsible for Heidi's demise, why give police such a specific location of this pastor's house who had no connection to him or Heidi? Some people suspect the minister knew Jimmy and was helping him cover up the crime, although that seems unlikely to me. If we believe Jimmy that he dropped off Heidi, why was she going to a random pastor's house? It's unclear if her coworkers were questioned to see if she mentioned Sims' name or going to Golden Estates. This is what I would like to know first. What about her friends, her coworkers? Did she say where she was going? Could she have been confronting Sims for some reason? He was married with children around the same age as Heidi and Jimmy, but I can't find any reports that say they knew each other. I believe the pastor had 4 or 5 children that were all around the same age in the young 20s. Now, they didn't go to Naples High School. They went to a different high school, but it was very close by. So potentially there could have been a bonfire, there could have been a secret relationship or friends. It's just odd that she would ask one friend to drive her to another friend's house. And she allegedly told Jimmy she wanted to go to see the dad, Arthur. There's been no trace of Heidi, dead or alive, all these years later. Did police ever search the Sims wooded property? With her missing for 3 days and not reported, if someone did end her life, they had plenty of time to hide her and the evidence. Also, why did her roommate not report her missing after 3 nights of not coming home? Her boyfriend was out of the country. I do think if Jimmy was lying, he chose an odd and dangerous lie. He could have said he dropped her off at the store or at her house or somewhere more generic like a park. However, we know criminals aren't always very smart. Jimmy only lived about 5 miles from this pastor. Now, I don't know everyone within a 5-mile radius of my house, but it's plausible he knew the pastor or knew of him and just used it to make up a lie. Perhaps maybe even knew his kids. The Sims family sold their property in 1992, just 5 years later, but remained in the area. Heidi would be 61 years old today. At the time she went missing, Heidi had brown hair, brown eyes, and an 8-inch scar on her lower abdomen, prominent collarbones, and slightly hunchbacked. She also had a hearing impairment and wore hearing aids in both of her ears. She was 5 foot 2 inches and about 110 pounds. If you have any information about Heidi's disappearance, please contact the Collier County Sheriff's Department at 813-774-4434. It's unfortunate in this case, we have 2 suspects who both have completely different stories that could be completely true. There could be a third party involved that picked her up, the pastor's son's friends. We have no idea who was at the pastor's house that day. It would be nice if the police released a little bit more information about her case and what they know. Some cases I hear right away and think this could easily be solved. This one, however, unfortunately, with the lack of information, with one of the suspects, in my opinion, now gone, I just don't know. They have compared her DNA to several Jane Does found. And at this point, I just really do hope that her remains are discovered because I don't think she's out there living her life. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Unsolved Florida.